Good morning, Nalkan. All right, let's get started. My talk is about the trustless future. So who am I? I work as a principal security engineer at Eigen Labs. We are a distributed systems lab that does a lot of applied cryptography and mechanism design. Previously, I have done some AppSec, ML, blockchains, that kind of roles. You can see a lot of the demos I used in this talk at this GitHub link. Okay, let's get started. So I'm sure you guys need no introduction about what are bug bounties, right? You find a bug, you report it to HackerOne, Bugcrowd, the companies that register for these platforms takes a look at it. Sometimes you get a reward, sometimes it doesn't qualify, right? So there is a lot of trust involved in doing this, right? And time. So I could just write a report, there is an RC in google.com. Someone still takes a look at it. There is no guarantees that this is a real bug, right? I heard people complain that a lot of bug reports they get now is ChatGPT. They make it easy for you to fake these reports because they write in depth about how this is a really cool bug, but it really isn't, right? So that's what I'm talking about in the first point there. The fake reports cost verification time. And sometimes, maybe they don't feel like paying you a lot. They could just lower the severity and you are at the mercy of the platform. Sometimes they side with the companies, sometimes they don't, right? And sometimes they just go fix the bug and they don't pay you. Not many people do that, but it still happens, right? And there are humans that look at these bugs. Imagine you have a really fun bug, reading messages of WhatsApp or something. That bug is very useful, right? Our earlier speaker talked about how these exploits are being sold for millions of dollars, right? So maybe the bug would be stolen because these are people who have access to your bugs and they are valuable. And the last one is when you disclose a bug to a bug reporting platform, a lot of details, right, like PII, might be disclosed. Imagine if it's a SQL injection, right? The output of SQL injection is the information in your database. Maybe there is PII, and you don't want that to be disclosed to this platform, right? So to fix all this, we have to do three main things. One is to remove trust, and we trust these platforms to do the right thing. So that is what I mean by remove trust. What if we don't have to trust? And how do we do that, right? If it is cryptographically verifiable, you don't have to trust. So if I tell you the pre-image of a hash is some random string, right? You don't have to trust me, you can verify it. So that is what I mean by cryptographically verifiable. And atomic transactions. So one of the things that happen is you report a bug and then you wait. Maybe you get paid a high sell, maybe you don't, right? But you don't know. What if the minute the transaction, when you report the bug, you instantly get paid atomically? So there is no waiting around, right? There is no waiting around for anyone to triage or whatever. You get paid instantly. So you know exactly what you're getting paid the minute you report the bug. Okay, so how do we make this happen, right? So applied cryptography, along with some mechanism design, gets you trustless coordination. Because that is really what we need to fix this ecosystem, right? And the core technologies we use to fix this is ZK-TLS and ZK-VMs. And we'll go into details about how these technologies work. But first, let's understand what is ZK. or a zero-knowledge proof, right? So it is a cryptographic method that allows one party to prove a statement is true without revealing any underlying data. Okay, so before we get into this, you're in Goa, you wanna go to a club, you gotta show your ID. The bouncer just has to verify that you are above 18. He doesn't need to know where you live, your home address, your gender preferences, whatever you have in your ID, right? Like if it's your passport, you have a lot of data in your passport that you are revealing to this bouncer so you can get into this club. Does he need to know that? Probably not, right? He just needs your picture and he just needs to know your age. He doesn't even need to know your age. He just needs to know that you are above 18. But this is the state of the art today, right? This is what we do every day. But what if we could fix that, right? So, without diving into the cryptography of it, imagine you can mask up your passport in a way that it only reveals your picture and the age. They can still trust that it is a legitimate passport because they see everything else, right? It feels like a legitimate passport. And you only reveal the information that is useful for the bouncer. So we are getting somewhere, right? So we did prove to the bouncer that you are above a certain age and this is really your passport by revealing this picture and the age. But we can do even better, right? You don't even have to reveal your age. You can just prove that you are above 18. And that is really the application, one of the applications of zero knowledge. It is privacy preserving. And when you make these proofs, you can cryptographically verify that the statement is true. Just like when I disclose a hash and its pre-image, you can verify that it does match, right? Just like that, zero knowledge proofs allow you to verify these. So how do they work? Hash functions, right? So a combination of hash functions, CK-DSLs, elliptic curve cryptography, and snarks. So what are hash functions, right? It's not encryption, but hash functions, you're familiar with like SHA-256, MD5. So that's really what hash functions are. Allows you to create unique identifiers for your input data. And there are guarantees around it, like no two plain text input will match the same hash if they are different, even by a bit. And what are arithmetic circuits, right? If you look into it, it can get really complex, but I think we can focus on the right. You see a loop, right? These loops can be represented as mathematical equations. So when we programmers write these loops, we are essentially writing math. So if you have a way to turn your programs into math, we call them arithmetic circuits. And what is ECC, right? So I'm sure you have used ECDSA for signature verification. So elliptic curves are the underlying technology that enables this. And they are more secure with less security bits. So they are fast. And what are snarks? So this is the technology that ties it all together. It allows you to make cryptographic proofs that you can provide the person who wants to verify the statement you are making. So in our previous example, you wanted to prove that you are above 18. So a snark proof would be given to this bouncer, like he doesn't need to understand that there could be a mobile app, he could just scan that. And the program would verify that this cryptographic proof is indeed valid. So snark is the technology that we use to make this happen. There are other technologies like stocks, but we're keeping it simple for now. Okay, so we talked about zero-knowledge proofs. How do we generate them, right? So this is a very basic zero-knowledge proof generation. So we write this out, and we use this DSL called Circa. And the hash function we use is Poseidon. So SHA-256, MD5, they are great hash functions, but they are not very zero-knowledge friendly. So Poseidon is a hash function that allows you to use zero-knowledge, and it's much less CPU intensive. So a signal A, signal B, we take in a message, and we take in the Poseidon hash of a message. So you have some pre-image, and you take the hash. And then you assert if the pre-image matches the hash. So here, I am proving that I know the pre-image of a hash. And the best properties, one of the best properties of zero-knowledge is that I don't have to disclose the pre-image to you. But I can give you the proof, and then you can trust that I know the pre-image because the proof is cryptographically verifiable. So let's do a demo, right? Yeah, demos are way better. All right, let's do this. So this is the source code that you looked at earlier, and at the very bottom, you have the input. It is the pre-image, that is 5, and B is the Poseidon hash of pre-image. You can Google this, you'll get some online hash verifier, or you can calculate the hash yourself. So let's do this, right? So when you execute it, you get this log. So you see right here, this is the output that you get by executing this. So you can just run a refresh, and if the Wi-Fi works, we'll have it compiled. Yeah, you can see on your right, it is doing some math, and in a few seconds, you'll see that it verifies if the hash matches, all in a browser, and the proof it generates after this computation can be used to prove that I know the input 5 without disclosing it. So it generated these artifacts, and they look like this. So you can click on generate proof, and you see it generated a proof down below. And you can click on verify proof. It says the proof is valid, right? So what is really happening? So this part right here is the proof, and this is the hash. You can see that over here. So if you change something, I don't know the pre-image, let's just assume that, and I'm trying to prove to you that I know. So I put in a random number, I generate a proof, and it says error, right? So you need to know the pre-image to generate a proof. Without knowing the pre-image, you cannot generate a proof. And if the proof is valid, you can trust that this person knows the pre-image. This is awesome, right? Is there any other way you could prove to someone that you know the pre-image of a hash without actually disclosing it? Right? So this is pretty cool, and this is awesome. This has a privacy property that we can use to leverage our final goal, which is trustless bug bounties. Now, let's make some changes, right? Okay. So go back to 5. This would verify. And this is the hash, right? So I'm going to change a single digit in there. I'll make it 2. Still, you can play with it. This is all online. I'll share the slides. So you can trust me when I say that you cannot generate a valid proof without knowing the hash and the pre-image. All right. So we verified. Things look good. Okay, now let's get back to our presentation. All right. So we just proved that we know the pre-image of a hash without revealing it, right? Now, let's introduce a new concept, a smart contract. So I'm sure you all have heard of blockchains like Bitcoin. There are also blockchains that allow you to deploy programs to it, like Solana, Ethereum, all that. You just write code like you would write Python, and then you would send a transaction to a blockchain, and this code will execute across the millions of nodes that run your smart contract blockchain. And one of the popular platforms you can use to write smart contracts is Ethereum. So you would write your code in Solidity. Now, we were able to pull up a browser UI and verify that the proof was valid. What if you can do it in a smart contract, right? Let's do that. So this is a remix. This is an IDE that you can use to deploy and test smart contracts. So from this demo, you can see we have some files that were generated, right? So this output would give you some files, and you can use that. So here, if you click on Groth16, Groth16 is a proof system, and it generates a Solidity smart contract verifier for you. So once this is done generating the smart contract, you can copy the smart contract over to an IDE. You can see the file right here. You can so it would be downloaded, and I have pasted the verifier file here. So this is just Solidity's smart contracts. You deploy the smart contract, and now you can call it. So you have some arguments lined up to your left, and there is a function called verify proof. And you provide the same arguments, you can see these arguments here, right? We have 3 arguments here and a pre-image and the hash. We provide that to the smart contract, just like it's shown here. And then you just call. And it says it's false. So if you make changes to this call, it will not verify. But if you were to provide the right argument, it would. So I have generated the right arguments here. So this is a tool that you can use to generate the right smart contract calls to your Solidity verifier. So instead of running this check in a browser, you can run it in a smart contract. So this is that check. You can copy that. Change it here. And now you can see that the function returned true. Okay. Let's zoom in a bit. Yeah, you can see over here, the function did return true right here. So that means the proof that we provided to this smart contract verified successfully, and everyone who looks at this transaction on a public blockchain can verify that we indeed know the pre-image of the hash. Okay. So that is great. But what else do we need for trustless bug bounties, right? So we introduced this concept called ZK VMs. So ZK VM, or a zero knowledge virtual machine, it's a specialized platform which allows you to write code in it and then generate these proofs that you can verify either offline, just like we did with the browser, or in a smart contract. But one of the cool parts about the specific VM that we are using is that it allows you to write code in Rust. So previously when I showed you the SIRCOM DSL, that was very specialized for writing zero knowledge proofs. You would need to be trained on how to do that. But in a RISC-0 VM, you can just write code in Rust. And Rust is easy, right? It's better than writing SIRCOM specific code bases. So let's do that. Okay. So this is just a hello world program that runs inside a RISC-0 ZK VM. And you can see that I have this input, 15, right? And I'm passing it from the host program to a guest program. So how RISC-0 VM works is that it has a host environment where you have full access to like the Rust primitives, and you can import libraries and whatnot. And then you have a guest program which runs inside a ZK environment. And RISC-0 uses the RISC architecture, and they have specialized circuits that represent operations just like in a CPU. So the instructions are represented as circuits. So when you write a Rust program, they can compile that into a zero knowledge proof. So you can see this happening. This is how you build an execution environment for RISC-0. And we have a default prover, and once the proof is generated, we can decode that and print out the output. So we are compiling it, and you can see in this output that the pre-image is correct. So let's see what it did, right? So we are looking at the guest program, and you can see that I am reading the input from the host program into your guest, and then I am calculating I'm creating an instance of a SHA-256 verifier, and I am verifying if the input, that is 15, matches this hash. If it matches the hash, then I print out pre-image is correct. If it doesn't, then it will result in an error. This is very readable code, right? Compared to like what we did before to do something like this, this is very readable code. This is just plain Rust. So that is how you can like generate zero knowledge proofs just by writing code in Rust. Anyone can do this. Okay, so let's move on to, now that we understand ZK VMs, where you can like write code in Rust, we just proved that we know the pre-image of a hash without revealing it, but we did it in Rust. So this is definitely an improvement, right? Now we introduce this new concept called ZK TLS. So we all know what is TLS, right? So TLS is the protocol we use to like communicate with like web servers over the internet securely. Now, adding ZK or zero knowledge to TLS allows you to prove your HTTP request and responses to a verifier without disclosing the things you don't want to disclose. So, this is how the TLS notary works internally. There is a server, this could be like google.com, and you are the prover, you are the one who is trying to prove an HTTP request and response to a verifier. So, like when you visit google.com on a browser, you would talk to the server, and you want to prove to someone that you did visit this website and you got this response. And the verifier can cryptographically verify the attestations created by the notary by signing over this proof that is generated over an MPC connection. So MPC stands for multi-party computation. The reason you have to use MPC is that it allows you to keep the data private from the notary. So you don't have to like disclose all of your data to the notary so they can verify that this proof is indeed correct. Like when you want to like notarize a document, right? You have to show them the real copy and the original copy, right? So you're disclosing information to the notary. They know exactly what they are verifying. But using MPC, the notary can be sure that they are verifying a legitimate HTTP transaction without seeing the contents of the HTTP request and response. So it allows you to like have privacy, but at the same time, they are cryptographically verifiable. So the notary can be sure that it is signing over the data that indeed is correct. So let's look at some of the applications of something like this, right? So I'm sure you all have heard of like prompt injection, because AI is all the hype, right? Everyone is like trying to do some prompt injection. So this is a CTF, and it is available at promptairlines.com, and this is the very first challenge. So our goal is to manipulate the customer service AI to get a free airline ticket. And the first challenge is to like get the identity of the AI agent that is talking to us. Okay? So what do we do, right? We have to do prompt injection. And that is the first step. And if you do it right, you will get this CTF, like you can like put it in a box and verify it. So you get a point. Now, the secret sauce is my request, right? What was my HTTP request that gave me the flag? Nobody wants to share what was the prompt I used to hack this AI agent. But we all want to brag that we did, right? So how do we solve this, right? Because the prompt we used is the secret sauce. We don't want anyone to know that. But we do want people to verify and believe that we were indeed successful. So without trusting some third party, usually these CTFs are run by some companies and it will be a value in a database, but the database could be hacked, the companies could manipulate it, all of that. But we don't need any of that. We can use TLS Notary and prove cryptographically that indeed this prompt gave us the flag. So let's do a demo, right? Okay. So let's run through what this code does while it works in the background. So when you execute prove.rs, it creates a connection to this website that we saw earlier, and it sends a prompt. This is the prompt that we saw in the image earlier, right? This is the secret sauce. This prompt gave us the CTF flag. We do not want to disclose it, but we want everyone else verifying our proof to be sure that we did indeed manage to get the flag. So this is how we construct a request. This is all plain Rust. There is nothing special here. Then we start the MPC TLS connection with the notary. So the notary can sign over this request and response. And then, towards the very end, we write the transcript to disk. So it would look something like this. So you can see the response body here and the flag is here, right? So now, how do I prove to someone that I did indeed manage to get this flag without revealing my request, right? So that is the next step. So we take in the attestation and we create something called the presentation. And the presentation is the document that can be verified. And here you go, right? This is the data sent. So this is a cryptographically verifiable proof. You can see the data was sent to the Prompt Airlines. Everything works. But you can see the body is redacted. The body and the user agent is redacted. But the output does have, the CTF flag, right? So anyone who verifies this can cryptographically verify the signature on this proof. And when you open it, you do see the response, but the request is hidden. So now I cryptographically proved to the verifier that I was able to do a prompt injection, keep my prompt a secret, and then they were able to check what my response was, and the flag is in that response. So you can do this with like regular HTTP communication today, right? So that is the beauty of ZK TLS. Now, this final secret sauce is to combine the ZK VMs with ZK TLS, so you can do trustless bug bounties. So let's look at that. All right. So we just did this. Now we are going to combine what we did in the previous demos. A ZK VM where you can like write code in Rust and prove things in zero knowledge. ZK TLS where you can have request and responses, API request and responses, but hide information. So you are able to prove that you are able to get an output without revealing the request. And smart contracts, so you don't need a trusted intermediary to verify all this. So that is how we get this final architecture. So I know there is a lot going on, but let's do a demo. Okay, so this right here is the RIS0 program that takes in a TLS notary proof and it verifies the proof inside the ZK VM. So you know you can trust it. And then it RSA encrypts the plain text request to the person who wants to view or pay for this bug. So imagine I'm google.com and I have a prompt injection bug. I want to disclose it to google.com. So Google will have its own public key available. I do RSA encrypt the plain text TLS notary transcripts, which has the request and response. And then I verify that the data that I am encrypting is indeed valid. So you are actually buying the real prompt, not something else. So you could replace it with like RCEs, you can replace it with like memory corruption bugs. So anything that you want to like sell, right? You make sure it is verifiable in a ZK VM. And for HTTP, you can use TLS notary. And for other like memory corruption, like binaries and all that, we have something called as CK CPUs, which we'll talk about some other day. But that is really what is happening here. So you prove that you have the bug in ZK. You verify the proof inside a ZK VM. You encrypt the clear text to the buyer. And the buyer puts in some funds on a smart contract. The smart contract verifies that this proof is valid and atomically pays the buyer. So the funds that are locked up in the smart contract gets instantly released to the buyer, to the person who is sending you the exploits. And this means they don't have to wait for someone to verify and then give them the payment, right? Everything is atomic. There is no middleman involved, but you are assured that you are indeed buying the real exploit. So maybe we don't need zero-day, right? We just, it's all trustless now. So that is essentially it. So we do have some next steps, that is to improve the trust assumptions. We need some more changes to TLS Notary so it can handle big sizes. There are many enhancements and like speed up improvements coming up to like ZKVMs. There is also this new technology called FHE, fully homomorphic encryption that can help things. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I don't know if we have time for some questions. If we do, we'll do it. If not, I'll be over there. I'll be around the conference. And thank you, Nalcon, for having me. It's great to be back.